politely uninvite someone to your wedding?
That is tricky, I think, because it's hard to imagine a circumstance where you would want to.
I think if you've invited someone and they've RSVP'd, then to backtrack and uninvite someone is just really awkward.
Yeah.
I think the only excuse that you could possibly use might be a family one, because I feel like family trumps, say it's a friend you want to uninvite, so you could just make up an excuse and say, listen, I'm really sorry, my mother is insisting that great aunt Agatha come along to the wedding, and great aunt Agatha is elbowing you out. I'm terribly sorry, just tight on numbers.
That's it.
I
Push
think
the
that's the
blame
only.
elsewhere.
Yeah, I think that's
Nothing
gotta
to
be
do
it.
with me.
Yeah, exactly. Blame your mum.
Perfect.
Yeah, fine. Yeah. So.
And second question, can you bring animals to your wedding?
Jade?
Well,
we might take different Tatler bride views on this.
A lot of brides do.
Yeah.
Everyone has the pet they want to include in the wedding in some way, shape or form. I think the thing you have to bear in mind, just like when you have kids at a wedding, is they're not necessarily going to follow your perfect vision of how the running order of the day is going to go. You know, they aren't necessarily going to honour the formality that you're imagining is going to be there on your wedding day. You also have to bear in mind this thing of, you know, a pug in a bow tie is potentially going to upstage you. Do you want that on your wedding day?
How could you upstage anyone in a dress like this, Jade? I don't know.
So worth bearing in mind. But for Tatler, this is...
No, Tatler, I think we're all for it. I think if you've got 15 Labradors, have them along, you know, send them down the aisle. We know, we love animals, so yeah, I think we're pro animals at weddings.
Okay.
And how can you make a wedding fun and anti-cliche?
And anti-cliche. Okay.
Wow. You've got to put your personality on it, haven't you?
Yeah.
You've got to make it about you. You haven't necessarily got to follow everything that, you know, tradition would dictate that you've got to do. So if you don't want to do a traditional running order, you shouldn't do it. If you don't want to get married in a white dress, you shouldn't do it. You don't necessarily have to get married in a dress at all. And I just think you've got to stamp your personality all over it as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, I think just, I mean, I'm not married, but I think don't be cowed by other weddings that you've been to or things that you've seen. I think, yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's your big day, so make it, you know, what you really want it to be. You and husband as well. Yeah. Both of you. It's your big day. So yeah, it's for you guys to make it what you really want it to be, rather than worry about other people, really.
Yeah. Forget the one-upmanship.
Yeah, totally.
And someone's asked a question: would it be naff to get married at a sports venue?
No.
I don't
think it is at all. Again, I think it's your day. So if sport is your thing, and cricket is your thing, and you want to get married at Lord's, I don't know if Lord's do weddings, but or Twickenham, and you know, rugby's your thing, then great, why not? Again, don't be cowed and feel like you've got to get married in church. And
if you're obviously that sort of person that's going to be known to the people at your wedding, they're going to expect that of you probably. So choosing to get married at the, you know, Arsenal football ground or wherever is probably going to be completely expected for the people that are coming. So they're not going to see it as naff. You're not going to see it as naff. So
I'd be thrilled to go to something that wasn't another English church. Yeah, and go and
bit of variety.
Yeah, and go and sit in wherever and have a jolly sports wedding. How fun!
Yes. So talking of naff, hen parties. Should you go classy or should you just stick with embracing the naff?
It's doing what you want to do. I mean, it doesn't have to be naff now. There are so many companies out there that will build you a really fantastic bespoke itinerary that is anything but naff. You can, you know, gazillion things you can do on your hen do. Yeah. But I also think there's nothing wrong with a bit of naff. Yeah. You know, it's supposed to be a laugh. It's supposed to be a bit tongue-in-cheek. You're all supposed to come out the other side of it a bit embarrassed, aren't you? So yeah, very embarrassed, I would say, is the aim. Yeah, I mean, God, penis straws, penis headbands, you know, sashes, badges, bells, whistles, all that stuff. All of it. I think, even though I grumble quite a lot about hen dos, everyone in my office knows I grumble a lot about going to 500 hen dos. You have to embrace them and just get on board and join in, wear silly stuff. It's just about the bride having the best weekend, or best night even. That's the thing, it doesn't now have to be a weekend. Yeah. One of the best hen dos I ever went to, I've written this before, was just in a Mexican on Labatt Grove, and we just were there all night basically. It wasn't a whole weekend. People didn't grumble about spending millions of pounds to go away. People didn't grumble about bedrooms and which bedroom they were in. You'll get the best out of your crew basically. Yeah. If they don't have to keep it up the whole weekend, then they're going to play ball a bit, bit easier. Quite.
Someone wants to know formal dress code for the day. Morning dress, but what would evening guests wear?
What if you're having formal dress? Well, really traditional weddings. This happened at Prince William and Kate's wedding. They were all obviously there in morning coats, very traditional stuff in the morning. Then everyone went home and they got changed for dinner that night. That was uber traditional. Obviously, requires quite a lot of outfit changes for guests. So that's one way of doing it. I love nothing more than a man in morning coat, frankly. So all for that. But yeah, so I'm quite a fan of the sort of formal look. Yeah, Jade?
Yeah, I think it's so loose now with what you can wear to a wedding. A lot of those rules. I mean, you see mothers of the bride wearing white. You know, you see the
Is that allowed?
That is allowed. I mean,
Okay.
in fact, one of our own bride staffers, her own mother, just very recently wore white to her wedding. She's completely cool with it.
Okay.
It's, you know, you just got to have that conversation up front. And
I mean, again, if you're wearing something like this, it's
yeah,
be quite hard to upstage. So
yeah, no one's upstaging that. I've tried and failed.
Talking of mothers of the bride and mother-in-laws, how do you cope with a mother-in-law to be that might be a little overbearing? What could you give them to do in part of your wedding planning?
I think you've got to really give them something to get their teeth stuck into.
like
you
a
know,
boring job.
A boring job, but one that takes a lot of effort. Like,
What's
ask
that?
her to go and learn calligraphy and then get her to handwrite
Oh,
all
yeah,
your
that's a good one.
invitations, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
That's going to just get her off your case, basically, for as long a period of time as possible, if that's how you're feeling about her.
Or what about like narrowing down readings or
Yeah.
hymns or songs
That
or
takes a lot
something?
of research.
That's a lot of like, you know, desk-based solid research
Yeah.
maybe for mother-in-law.
Finding that piece of, you know, really rare antique lace that you simply must have as your tablecloth.
Yeah.
That's going to take a good bit of legwork.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, the mother of the bride and the mother of the groom, like, ultimately they just want to feel like they're up to speed with your wedding. It's when they feel out of the loop that
Left
the
out.
problems come.
Yeah.
Because they want to speak from a position of knowledge and feeling like they're in the loop with it all. And if you cut them out of it, I think that's when it starts to get a bit tense.
Also, especially if they're paying for a bit of it, I can
Yeah.
see how if they're contributing
yeah.
but they're being elbowed out, then
Yeah.
that might be quite irritating.
If you take their money, then I think you have to accept
Yeah,
they just
somehow.
bought rights to
To
decision
the calligraphy.
making.
Yeah, to the boring bits.
Question from one of our readers: bridesmaids, are mismatched dresses allowed, or is that just tacky?
No, I think. Do you know what? I've been a bridesmaid. I was a grown-up bridesmaid 3 or 4 times last year, which was wonderful. And for not one of those weddings were we in matching dresses. We all got to pick what we wanted, and I think it actually, little ones, fine. I think they can be in matching. They look incredibly sweet. Big people, if you've got say 4 grown-up bridesmaids, it's likely they will all be different shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
And trying to find a dress that makes them all look terrific is pretty impossible. So I think let everyone, you might have a theme. So my friend Tash, when she got married last year, she said could we all be in bright dresses. So I was in orange, another friend was in yellow, I think there was a bright pink, and it was a South of France wedding. She was in an amazing white dress, and then the colours of the brightness against her white dress looked great. And everyone was happy because they got to pick their own bright dress. So I think don't try and force
No.
big bridesmaids into all the same dress. It's a nightmare.
Totally agree. The last
Yeah.
thing you want is hacked off bridesmaids.
I think it's
on the
making
big
exactly
day.
a rod
Doesn't
through and
work.
back. Yeah, I would say.
So how do you, say for example your groom has got a sister, should you invite her to be your bridesmaid or do you not have to?
I don't think if you want to have her as your bridesmaid, you don't have to feel any pressure to invite her, but that might be a conversation that's best for him to have with her
Yeah.
as opposed to you, depending on the relationship. But you want to choose your bridesmaids on the basis of who is really going to be there for you, who's going to fulfill all those roles to the best of their ability, and the right tight group of people that are going to keep you calm and together, I think, on the big day. And if that's not her, that's not her.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that you shouldn't be forced to have any bridesmaid that you don't want, and absolutely, if that's an issue, just, you know, that's your future husband's job, I think, in this case.
Yeah. Again, pass the buck.
Yeah.
Do you think you should choose your hairstyle or hair accessories first?
Before anything
Right.
else. Before the dress, before anything. Oh,
Hairstyle or hair? I suppose if you've got a massive burning desire to wear a particular thing in your hair,
yeah.
that's going to dictate what the hairstyle looks like. But you're probably also got to think about the type of hair you've got, whether it's going to hold it, whether it's going to work. The whole outfit does kind of have to gel
work
together. So it is sort of all part of the same thing, really. Unless there's some amazing antique piece
that you have, or you've been given,
Yeah.
or that your mum wore, that you really, really want to build into the whole thing, then yeah, potentially. But so long as you can find a dress, you know, all any other accessories that go with it, then fine,
and you
right?
will. There's so much out there. It's not going to be an issue.
What about hats? Do you think you have to wear hats now? What's the rules with that?
Guests, right? Hats. I love huge hats. There was a friend of mine who got married a couple of years ago, Jo, and she, on her invitation, it said hats - the bigger the better. Because I think a lot of people, you go to I go to a lot of weddings now where there aren't that many hats. But actually, there's something kind of wonderfully for weddings and funeral about going to an English church and just there being like a sea of some terrible hats, some brilliant hats. It's just amazing. And then there's always the awkwardness afterwards and everyone's trying to kiss each other hello and there's the clashing of the hats. But it's the only time really that you can properly, I mean there are a few other occasions I guess in the year that you would put on a hat, but yeah, I'm all for it. I know it's one more thing to think about and a real pain in the arse sometimes to find a hat and make sure it works with the dress and the shoes, etc. But I think it kind of does look amazing.
Yeah, and it just stamps it as a wedding day.
Yeah,
exactly as you say.
Exactly.
You look at everybody in the hats. I just think if you're going to do it, you should embrace it. It's, you know, when you get this kind of slightly flirting with it but not really wanting to do it, that's sometimes when it can look a bit awkward.
Yeah,
I think you've got to own it.
Exactly.
Whatever it is you choose to wear, you have to go for it.
No, exactly.
One reader's asked us, you know, what is the best tips on working with your photographer for the best snap moments of your day?
I think one of the things my friend Tash again I remember saying to me is just make sure that you've sat down with them before and given them a list of people who really, really, really matter. So, I mean, you know, great Aunt Agatha, to bring her back into the picture. If you should have pictures of your family, so give him a list and make sure he knows who are the family members or friends that you really want photos of. So you don't end up with, you know, your husband's accountant's wife in every single picture because who cares? So I think that's quite a good tip. Yeah,
and also I think a lot of couples now do an engagement shoot with their photographer, so they've chosen them after they've got engaged and they do that whole shoot a lot of the time so that they build a lovely rapport with the photographer, so that on the day there's none of that slightly tiptoeing around each other. It's just you know each other, you've had lunch together, you've spent a day on a shoot together, it's completely comfortable. So I think that's a good idea. I'd always say visit the venue with the photographer in advance, just so that you can really decide together where those shots are going to be. And you just need to make sure that they're briefed. If there are any kind of slightly awkward family dynamics going on, your photographer is definitely the person that needs to know about those, so they're not forcing people into a shot that really don't want to be in a shot together. But it's just getting to know that the photographer well in advance, I think.
What about paying for their meals and things? That's mostly you've got to pay for, you've got to give them a meal, and with your band you've got to pay for. What are the rules on that, do you think? Is it okay to say no, you're not going to pay for it?
Well, having not been married, actually I might defer to Jade, I have no idea.
Well, there's no rule, but do you want people working at your wedding day who are starving, hungry and haven't had a proper break and are really grumpy and everybody else is well fed? It's just, you know, just accept that it's going to be a cost. You cannot expect your photographer to work the whole day and be trying to snatch a sandwich quickly. It's like, it's not going to make for a happy situation.
Also, if you're spending X amount on a wedding anyway, what is really, in the grand scheme of things, another head or a couple of heads if we're counting the band or whoever? I think, that seems sensible. Keep them happy.
Okay, another quick question for you, Sophia. What's the best way to cope with a really drunk guest?
I've been to some weddings where there were some of those. I think I've been that person sometimes. I would say I'm thinking of a specific wedding where you can get in this case it was the stepfather of the bride. I had a quiet word. Someone had a quiet word with him, and he and another member of the family went off and subtly dealt with it. So the bride and the groom weren't aware. They didn't know. They were merrily doing the first dance. This guest was driven back to hotel and left there. Because I think you don't want someone creating a drama and spoiling, you know, anyone's day. So I think depending on level of drunkenness, I think removing from the scene is sometimes quite a good idea. Or it was in this wedding that I'm thinking of anyway. Very good idea.
Hopefully you're going to know in advance who your risky people are. If you're looking at your guest list, you know who's likely to be trouble. You can sit that person towards the back of the room during the...
Sorry guys, just sorting myself out.
Readjust.
Very dangerous.
And don't let them anywhere near a microphone, probably. And just make sure you've got somebody who's kind of eyes on whoever the problem person is likely to be.
Yeah, ideally that problem person isn't the best man, as happened at a wedding recently I went to. Yeah, watch out for that one.
So both of you are bosses. How would you feel if one of your staff didn't invite you to their wedding? Do you feel like you should be invited?
Ooh. Well, I think it really comes down to, has everybody else in the office been invited and not you? If you were the only person who wasn't invited, you might be a little bit...
Yeah, a bit like when you're little and you invite all of your class apart from one person. That would be quite tough.
That would be a bit wounding. Yeah. But otherwise, you know, people are getting engaged and married the whole time on brides, and you know, you would never expect to be invited to the wedding. I think, you know, does somebody want their boss at their wedding? Not always, do they? So it's fine. I think
horses for courses. I think it entirely depends, and it comes back to the thing that it is your day. If you, oh God, I'm being told that I've got a problem with the chicken fillet soy as well. It's really difficult. It's a £44,000 dress. But I can't fill it.
It's not totally indecent yet. Don't worry.
Is that right? Good.
You're good.
Okay, right, guys. Sorry.
Jade, a question for you. Advice for an older bride. She's second marriage in a church. What sort of style do you think she should go for?
God, there's so much that's coming through that's new season fashion this year. Some of it's going to be probably appropriate and the kind of thing you'll want to wear, and a lot of it won't be. I mean, there's loads of really deep slashed low V-necks that are coming through in the new collections now. Not necessarily the kind of thing you'll want to go for.
Very Kardashian.
Yes, but there are also some really beautiful trouser suits. I think it's Money-Coutts has one in her new collection that has a train attached. Okay. So it's a really cool trouser suit, but it does actually have a little train at the back.
Yeah, that is very cool.
It's a nice way of doing it. Loads of really great cream tuxes coming through as well, which is really lovely. I think the sort of thing I'm wearing for a second wedding would be lovely.
Do you mean not this? This is amazing, I have to say.
It is totally down to finding something you're comfortable in, because, you know,
it's a long day.
Anyone who's ever tried on a load of wedding dresses knows that the first 9 you put on just don't feel right, in my experience anyway. And then you find something that is just, you know, for me it would be lighter, you could move in it and you'd instantly feel comfortable, and that's the most important thing.
So it works, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I think the comfort thing, right, because it's just a long day in most cases.
Yeah. And
so you don't want to be sort of weighed down, uncomfortable. Yeah. Jade said earlier, some brides say, God, I couldn't wait to get the dress off at the end of the day, and I just think that's really sad and quite expensive. So
yeah, totally. But if you're
make sure you're comfortable.
You know, if the aim of the game is just like get through the ceremony quick so I can get this, you know, rump great thing off, that's not great, is it? You know, you want to be able to enjoy it, almost not be thinking about the dress because you know it looks great on, so you know, you don't have to worry about it.
So obviously lots of your guests will take pictures at your wedding. What's the best way to collect up all those pictures? What about a hashtag?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we now embrace the hashtag. I increasingly get invitations with hashtags on them, which is great. I always find myself looking at, not even weddings I've necessarily been to, it's brilliant to sort of perv other people's weddings on Instagram. You can look through at the hashtag, it's great. We all do it. So I think that's brilliant. Equally, I think I've got invitations before which say no social media. So if you don't want the first picture of you on social media, on Instagram or Facebook or wherever, to be out there with, you know, as you come out of the church with confetti in your mouth and your hair everywhere, I think be quite clear about that and say on your invitation, thrilled to have you there, please don't worry about Instagram for the whole time we're there. Nice break from Instagram for everyone, practically for 8 hours.
Yeah.
Jade, what do you think?
I think the same. It's, you know, you just have to make it clear to everybody when the parts are of the day that you don't want pictures taken, if there are any. Also, whoever's marrying you is probably going to have quite strong views on whether they want, you know, a kind of sea of camera phones being held up when you come in. So it's just checking all those things off. A lot of brides get really upset when the first pictures are the unflattering ones on social media.
I would.
Before you've even seen your professional pictures. That's not great. So you just have to communicate it, but you're not going to stop people snapping throughout your day. You're just not. So I think there has to be a certain amount of acceptance. It's just going to happen. You have to go with it, really.
What about babies at weddings? What would you? How can you sort of politely tell people not to bring their babies?
I don't think it even has to be polite, to be honest. I think people say on the invitation, terribly sorry, but yes, no children. We are unable to provide for children at the wedding or something. There's an expression that people use on their invitations.
Yes.
I think again, be clear.
Yeah.
and if you're not, then you've got to accept that halfway through your vows there might suddenly be a sort of wailing baby 3 rows back.
Yeah.
So yes, that's to be clear.
So a lot of brides seem to be kind of cool with the babes in arms, you know, if they're really young and can be dispatched out of the room quickly. They're more comfortable with that. It's when they get to that toddler phase where obviously they can't sit still for more than 2 seconds, it becomes more of an issue. But you have to make it clear from the beginning, because otherwise people will be accepting an invitation and then horribly offended they can't bring their children and declining, which does happen. So yeah, but if you speak to photographers, they quite often tell you that kids are a great kind of diffuser of stress and formality. And actually having them there quite often does just relax the whole thing a little bit. And
well, also they're family occasions, right?
Yeah.
So if you've got, you know, from little 6-month-old Jimmy to great aunt Agatha at 500 years old, it's quite nice to have everyone there.
Yeah, they're also
Muddling
great
along.
in the photos. You know, they quite often provide the really lovely shots
Sweet.
of the day.
Well, like what she called Grace at the royal wedding with her hands clapped up, you know, how sweet were those pictures? So
lovely.
yeah.
So if both of you were getting married this weekend, would you make a speech or not?
I really like it when women make speeches, when brides make speeches at weddings.
Yeah.
I know it's traditional. I go to a lot of weddings where it's happened and people are still shocking. This woman is there to make a speech at her own wedding. But I think why not? Why do the boys get to have a say the whole time? You know, you've got your father of the bride, lovely, the groom, and the best man. So I think yes, girl power. You know.
Otherwise, you're really, the female voice is completely underrepresented.
Yeah,
not
totally.
represented. So
yeah.
I think you can do it. I think you just have to be, you know, you have to have something to say. If you're just repeating a great long list of thank yous that have already gone, there's probably little point. I didn't make a speech at my wedding. That's like 15 years ago. But if I was getting married tomorrow, I would just feel that I could do it now. Whereas at the time, it was very much, you know, I don't want another thing to worry about. So it's sort of where you are as well, isn't it, in your own
It also doesn't have to
time.
be, you know, 15 minutes. It could be,
No.
I've been to a friend, she stood up for 2 minutes and it was brilliant. It was just, it was just before we sat for dinner. So it actually wasn't with the other speeches, I think. She just wanted to say something very quickly, mostly to her groom actually, and it was terribly sweet and everyone loved it. So yeah, it can be very short.
What about gift lists? And a lot of people are asking lots of different things about, you know, is it okay to put your gift list in with your invitations? Can you ask people to pay for your honeymoon? What do you think on that? What's your take?
Well, people are doing it. It's probably the one thing that divides this office the most, I would say, this whole thing of can you ask for money? Because, I mean, there are lots of things you can put on your gift list now. There are lots of companies you can go to where you pay for the honeymoon or you pay for experiences at the honeymoon. That's kind of totally the norm. But that has progressed slightly to actually physically asking for money. Somebody in the office was asked to contribute. The way the bride and groom did it was they asked people to buy a brick as part of their house. They're effectively asking them to help pay their mortgage off.
Yeah.
And that really sort of divides the crowd. There are some people that are comfortable with it, and you know, as many people that aren't. But there are also lots of gift lists now where you can set it up so that people are buying a gift, but then the gift list company will combine the total value and give
cash.
you they give you that. So although somebody thinks they're buying you the toaster and the towels,
the
you're
sheets.
actually like buying some fabulous new things for your wardrobe.
Bose flat screen TV.
Yeah. So there are ways around it that I think are a bit more socially acceptable, maybe.
Yeah, I'm that irritating person who always buys off lists, which I know
you?
people hate, because why would you have a list if you want your friend to buy you, you know, something off it? But sorry, friends.
So a question from Laura. Is there anything in particular that should be taken into consideration for a winter wedding? So anything, because obviously it's going to be freezing cold.
Yeah.
Two of my best friends, interrupting. Two of my best friends have had winter weddings, and they were so wonderful for various reasons. Like, we sang carols, which were great, really fun. And then we all came out of the church, and there were little bottles of, little cups of like mulled wine were being doled out, basically. Amazing. Hand warmers in a basket was another thing. I mean, they are all admittedly probably expensive little details, but they were great, and they just really made it, because I think obviously the norm is sort of summer weddings, and I just love the sort of specialness of a Christmas shindig, basically.
I agree. It's just making sure your guests are comfortable.
They're
if
cold.
they are going to be schlepping around or hanging around outside and it's cold, you've got to think about it. Otherwise, the whole mood of the day is going to dip. It's a complete vibe kill, isn't it?
Yeah.
If they're not comfortable. So.
Also photos, actually. So coming out of the church, am I still? Oh God, sorry
I was
guys.
trying to be subtle.
I'm just not going to be subtle about it. I'm just going to sort of hitch myself right up. Sorry, flashing light. on Facebook and get
This is
banned
why
from
I went
Facebook
high
for
neck.
this.
Actually, we've got a few.
This is actually quite a key
We
point.
just want to know
Probably.
where your dresses are from. So Jade and where's yours?
So mine is from Charlie Breer.
And Sophia.
Mine is from Philippa Lepley. It is amazing. But yeah, sorry, I keep flashing. I'm trying not to, but it is enormous.
So a question from Dawn, which is any good ideas for blending two nationalities together at a wedding?
Well, gosh, that is tricky.
Yeah.
Because unless you know the intricacies of, you know, the different cultural references that you're going to try and bring together, it's hard. People do it, and they do it with great effect. What it tends to mean is that you've got more stages to the proceedings.
Yeah.
You know, and it can quite often end up being staged over several days, and that's fine. I mean, we are featuring a wedding at the moment, which is exactly that. It's over about 5 days, and they're trying to sort of do all these lovely nods to different things, and it works really well. I think I guess you have to just sit down and try and find out what the key things are that everybody thinks are the most significant things to bring in, and do it that way. But people do it all the time. It's not hard.
I had a wedding of my friend Cara on New Year's Eve, and she's half Korean. So it was traditional English wedding in the church, and we went back and we had drinks, and then just before we sat for dinner they did a Korean ceremony. So Cara and her husband Thomas went off and got changed into the most beautiful traditional Korean outfits, came back, and there was lots of bowing that had to go on to both pairs of parents, and it was amazing because I'd never seen this before. It was beautiful, and they had on these kind of sensational silk, Cara had an amazing silk dress, and it was really special. I would say it was just different, and
incredibly
it was
personal.
so lovely and really important for Cara's mum, who is Korean. That was included. So that worked really well.
Question: what's your take on dealing with people who ask for a +1 and you can't accommodate?
I think it's surprising that anyone would ask for a +1, because it's so about your budget and you've worked it out, and obviously if there was a +1 available it would have been offered. But I think the flip side of it is you've also got to think about if that person doesn't know anyone else at the wedding.
That's true.
And they're likely to be kind of on your shoulder the whole time, and you're going to have to do a bit of a babysit with them, then you really might want to consider giving them the +1. If they don't know anyone there, it's going to be a bit miserable for them and possibly a bit of a pain for you. So I would be inclined, if you can fit it in and that person kind of fits into that category, to just let them have it.
Yeah, I've heard of some occasions though when someone's asked for +1 and the bride or the groom has said no, and that person has gone, well, I'm not coming then either, which is kind of astonishing. And you're probably not missing much from not having them at your wedding. But I've heard people they do ask, but I just think tricky one. Judge it each individual case, I guess.
What's your take on firing a bridesmaid who is no longer neither helpful nor fun?
Well, it happens, and it happens quite a lot. I mean, we're doing a piece actually in the next issue about a bridesmaid who resigns from the job because the expectation is so huge. And she actually says in the piece she should never have been asked to be a bridesmaid in the first place, because you know, the bride was kind of just ticking that, oh, I need a uni friend, oh, I need a work friend, ticking those boxes. But I think if she's really not enjoying it and
she's
it's
not adding to the party, then
probably just instigating that conversation is going to elicit her possibly resigning from the job anyway. But
also, if you don't want her looking grumpy in the photos in the day, do you? So you're sort of sullen and resentful standing at the edge of the photos. So I think, I mean, tactfully maybe have a little chat. Suggest she could step down. I think that's how you deal with it.
A question from Christy: is it totally necessary to give favours to your guests?
No, it's really not.
I don't think so.
I mean, nobody expects it. I mean, you see it a lot of the time, but one of the best favours I ever had at a wedding, everybody kind of arrived at the table and sat down, and the bride and groom had gone to this enormous effort of pulling very old pictures of everybody from Facebook and framing them. Sweet. So they were from years back, and it was a great icebreaker. You know, you're sat there looking at a really rough picture of yourself from 20 years ago, but everybody's laughing at them. And it was, it totally got everyone chatting, and it was the best thing, and then it was a cute little thing to take home. But, so they don't have to cost a lot of money, but if you don't want to do them, don't do them.
Yeah, add expense, I guess, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a huge amount of expense to add to the day. It's not necessary.
Or give that job to your mother-in-law to think about.
Yes.
Bridesmaids gifts. What's tasteful for older bridesmaids? What would you like as a bridesmaid?
I've been given before. Well, my friend Cara really excelled herself by getting us each Anya Hindmarch clutch bags, which she'd written. She'd handwritten notes that were then sort of what do you call it, embossed or stamped on the Anya Hindmarch clutch bags. That was, I mean, amazingly generous. I've had really pretty little necklaces before. I mean, again, it's probably it's another big expense to shell out for presents for your bridesmaids. So I've always been so thrilled to get anything, because I've always felt so honoured to be, there on the day and behind the scenes and drinking their champagne already by 10 o'clock in the morning. So I think to add presents on top of that is a big ask. But yeah, I think the necklaces were great. I think.
Yeah. Jewellery does seem to be the kind of easiest thing, and there are so many pretty collections that are, have kind of lots of hidden meanings in them and lots of gemstones that you can make kind of more relevant to your girls. So that sort of would be the obvious thing, really, and I don't think anyone's going to be disappointed to get it either.
Another question from Dawn: who should pay for bridesmaids' dresses, the bride or the bridesmaids?
I think it depends if you're dictating what they wear.
Yeah.
That's ultimately the thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Again, the one time that we were all matching as grown-up bridesmaids, my friend Emma bought them. All the other times when we've been allowed to pick what we wore, I have.
Yeah.
I think that it probably is the rule.
I think it's the neatest, easiest solution. If you're insisting, then you have to pay.
How many times have you both been bridesmaids?
Ooh.
Do you know what? I was never a little bridesmaid, and it sort of killed me. I was always really unspeakably jealous of all those sort of friends of mine at birthday parties when I was like 6 or 7, who all got to come in those really pretty silk dresses that they'd worn because they'd been bridesmaids. So I was never, apart from for my dad and my stepmom, I was a bridesmaid for them, but I wasn't sure if that counted because it was technically my dad. So, but I've been a grown-up bridesmaid, I think 5 or 6 times. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm probably about the same, but I had loads of being a bridesmaid when I was younger.
Oh,
and
nice.
actually, it's quite hard though, because obviously you've got zero say over what they do to you.
But do you mind if you're sort of 5? Maybe you mind a bit.
Probably not. Looking back at the pictures now, it's horrific. But
Sweet.
yeah, at the time, you're in this great flouncy, frilly thing.
Heaven. Big taffeta
I
number.
probably thought it was amazing at the time.
Yeah. Well, you probably think you're the star of the show if you're 5 o'clock and going down the aisle. 5 o'clock, 5 years old, and going down the aisle in a big sort of number.
Yeah,
great.
It's basically your wedding day in your mind.
Totally.
So finally, tell us about the new issue of Brides and the Tatler wedding supplement.
Oh, so new issue of
Turn
Brides.
I can't
Lots
actually.
of incredible new gowns in this issue. We're also introducing our new accessories section. So there's lots of really, really good shopping. Massive focus on shoes. So bridal shoes are a big part of this issue as well. And it's our big jewellery special. And it's on sale today, thank you.
Out now!
And Sophia, tell us about the Tatler supplement, the wedding supplement.
So this is our first ever wedding supplement. Weddings for Tatler readers are obviously a huge deal. We love them, whether it's your own or your mother's or your daughter's or your father's 6th trip down the aisle. So we've put together this, which is out this week with the March Tatler. It's got all sorts in here. It's got rules for brides or grooms or mother of the bride. It's got some sensational fashion shoots in here. It's got a piece about wedding sex, just in case you don't know what to do on the night. You haven't had that explained to you. It's got all sorts, and also what I particularly love is Claire Bennett did a brilliant piece. If it all gets a bit much and you want to run away, we've got a guide to eloping. I'll be damned at the back. So that is for those of you who are kind of sick of the whole fuss.
Okay, I think our time is probably up. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I hope we've been helpful.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Out now. Bye.